If you're sick of TV shows that start good but have an ending as graceful as a coffin on roller skates, if you're sick of TV shows that should be airing but get cancelled due to pesky rights issues, and if you're sick of TV shows that use a popular franchise to just virtue signal constantly, Better Call Saul! With the recent announcement that Better Call Saul will be pushed to 2022, I am very sad. However, this has also given me an opportunity because I've never really had a chance to talk about this show until now, and I'm going to take it because I think this is the best show on television right now. I also believe that it is the very best television prequel ever made, and I'll state my thesis on that in a little bit. But for right now, let's just talk about Better Call Saul in general. And well, this show is a prequel, and so I just want to talk a little bit about the show that came before it, Breaking Bad. I want to dedicate an entire long-running TV show vlog series to both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and spoiler alert, the Twilight Zone videos are coming back. But if I could describe this show in a couple sentences, here it is. If you were to take the tension of an Alfred Hitchcock film, the cinematography of a Sergio Leone film, the dialogue and musical stylings of a Tarantino film, and the dark comedy of a Kubrick film, you would get Breaking Bad. It was the brainchild of Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. Gilligan worked extensively on a TV show you might have heard of called The X-Files. And, well, let's just say he's one of the best showrunners going right now, if not the best. Probably every one of you has heard of Breaking Bad, but for those of you who have never heard it, it's essentially about a high school chemistry teacher named Walter White, played by Bryan Cranston, who after learning that he has terminal lung cancer, decides that he has to cook crystal meth to make money fast. And well, over the course of 6 seasons, you see him go from a pretty low-key, cool kind of high school teacher to just the absolute worst person you would ever hope to meet. Instead of telling episodic stories, it tells one story over the course of 6 seasons. And that story, combined with its rigidness of continuity and just its general unique feel, makes it one of the greatest, if not the greatest, TV dramas of all time. It's my personal favorite. It gave a second wind to Bryan Cranston's career. It gave a career to Aaron Paul as Jesse Pinkman. It won tons of awards. And just honestly, I could talk about this show for days, and one day I will. But for right now, this is a video about Better Call Saul. Because when Breaking Bad ended in 2013, it ended at the height of its powers. When the show started, it was getting about 1s and 2s in the rating. The finale was watched by over 10 million people. And so when a prequel was announced, I wasn't happy about it. Because Breaking Bad was good in its own little world. It didn't need expanded upon. I was especially dismayed when I learned that the prequel was going to be about the lawyer Saul Goodman, one of my least favorite characters. Well, in the words of Eric Bischoff,
anybody that's not willing to accept the fact that they've made bad choices has never been in the business of making good ones.
I knew that I had immediately doubted the show after the first episode, and I would never make that mistake again. Not only did Better Call Saul become my favorite television show going right now after the first episode, but it has remained that way all these years later. And honestly, I'm going to find this a little hard to talk about because I want to go into spoilers, and in some cases I feel like I need to go into spoilers, but I know that there are some people that have never seen this show. So I'm going to give a definitive spoiler-free section and a spoiler-filled section. This will be the spoiler-free section where I talk in vague details about how awesome this show is. When I get to the spoiler-filled section, I will give a definite noting of this is where spoilers are from here. Or if you just want to skip this section, the time code will be right here. But for right now, spoiler-free. And well, the basic story is that, well, it follows the origins of Saul Goodman. Before he was Saul Goodman, he was named Jimmy McGill. He's played by Bob Odenkirk. He starts out as a trial lawyer, but the lawyer where if you're being read your Miranda rights and you get to the part where the cop says you have the right to an attorney and if you can't afford one, one will be provided for you, this is the one that's provided for you. And over the course of soon-to-be 6 seasons, we see the fall of Jimmy McGill and the rise of Saul Goodman through a series of convoluted but just fascinating events. Everything that we know about prequels and how bad they can be, Better Call Saul does the complete opposite of that. This show provides context to what we see in Breaking Bad, not only from Saul Goodman, but also from the other characters. And how once upon a time, Jimmy McGill legitimately wanted to be a legit lawyer. He wanted to try and help people, but that just wasn't in the cards for him. And how factors both in and out of his control led him down the path that we would see in that first episode in Season 3. First of all, the acting in this show is absolutely stellar. How at least Bob Odenkirk has not won an Emmy is just puzzling to me, because he is consistently excellent, both in comedic light and in serious light, and everything in between. He crushes it every single time. Odenkirk is fantastic. The real MVPs of this show are Kim Wexler, played by Rhea Seehorn, and Mike Ehrmantraut, played by Jonathan Banks. Kim Lexler is one of the only original characters who has made it through the show up to this point. And in Season 1 and 2, I was like, okay, she's cool. But by Season 3, 4, and 5, she's become one of my favorite, if not my favorite characters on this entire show. She starts off as kind of a humdrum lawyer working for a pretty prime firm in Hamlin, and McGill. But then by the time Season 5 ends, she is in a completely different place. And Rhea Seehorn is just one of the more underrated actresses working today. And speaking of underrated, let's talk about Jonathan Banks for a second, because he is fantastic in this entire show. When I first saw him in Breaking Bad, I was like, okay, he's cool. You know, his half measures monologue was really cool. No more half measures, Walter. But by the time Season 1, Episode 6, called 5-0, rolls around, he became my favorite character of the entire show. He was for a good long time. Again, super vague, but let's just say that he starts out the show as just, like, trying to keep his nose clean and just trying to live as normal a life as possible. However, by Season 5, well, he gets into bed with some pretty nasty people. And, well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Let's just say that. And just in general, this show feels like a natural continuation of Breaking Bad, even though it's not a continuation, it's a prequel. All of the Breaking Bad flavor is here, but this show, and I love it for it, doesn't hit you in the face with references. With most prequels, it's like, hey, remember this? Hey, remember this? But this show actually goes out of its way to create original characters like Kim Wexler and Nacho Varga and Lalo, who comes in at about the end of Season 3. It's just great. And what holdovers we see from Breaking Bad, like Gus Fring, who becomes a regular starting Season 3, and Hector Salamanca as well, it provides greater context to their rivalry and to the events that we see in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad becomes better for me because whenever I see Hector and Gus in a room together, I say, oh, this happened at the end of Season 3 in Better Call Saul, and so now that's why I know why they're feuding. It's excellent. If you haven't watched Better Call Saul, I can't recommend it enough. I believe it is on Netflix. And I promise you, it's better than whatever Netflix movie just dropped right now. It's just the best show going right now. And as far as ranking of the seasons go, well, I think that might be controversial, but here is my personal ranking of the seasons of Better Call Saul. Number 5, Season 1. Again, great season of television, but the rest of the show is so good that 1 takes the last place slot. Still really good, though. Number 4, Season 2. Again, really good, but the rest of the show is so good that it gets diminished. Number 3, Season 4. It was my favorite of the show until Season 5, that is. Number 2, Season 3. It's just fantastic. like, no matter how you slice it. Just the Charles and Chuck, just the Jimmy and Chuck stuff, and everything in between is all great. And number 1, Season 5, the original. That might be a bit of recency bias, but at the same time, every single episode of Season 5 was just stellar. What can I say? Well, that's the spoiler-free section taken care of. Now this is a spoiler-filled section. I'm going to be talking about all of the seasons of this show in depth. So if you have not seen the show and you don't want to be spoiled, turn away now. Go to this time code if you want my final thoughts. But for those of you that are staying, well, let me just say that I know for a fact that I'm going to be missing a lot of plot points. This show is so loaded that I'm bound to miss something. So let me just say this, that in the future I will be dedicating a TV show vlog series to this show and Breaking Bad, where I review every episode and talk about it in depth. So whatever I miss here will be covered at a later date. I'm sure of it. But before I get into the individual seasons, well, there's another matter I got to address. And, well, I think I need to change the color palette around here. There we go. I don't know where else to talk about these scenes, so I'll just talk about them here. These are the black and white scenes. In every season of this show so far, we get one scene where we see what happens to Saul Goodman after the events of Breaking Bad. After a throwaway line in one of the last episodes of Breaking Bad where he says, "I'm lucky if I'm going to be managing a Cinnabon in Dayton, Ohio." Well, that's exactly what happens to him. I think the black and white scene in Season 1 is my favorite, where you see just how far Saul Goodman has come. You know, no more Cadillac, no more strip mall office, no more loud suits. He's just Gene Takovic, managing a Cinnabon. And it's kind of sad to see. And I guess he agrees, because at a certain point in this scene, he reaches into his cabinet, pulls out an old videotape, and sees old Saul Goodman commercials, and he starts to tear up. Like, that was his life's work, and if the whole Walter White thing hadn't happened, he probably would have still been doing it. The black and white scene in Season 2 sees Gene get locked in this room where the only way out is to push this bar that says emergency alarm will sound and police will be notified. And he's so paranoid of the police that he just won't do it. And the last frame just says, SG was here. So somewhere deep inside his soul, Saul Goodman is just waiting to crawl out. And that just so happens in Season 3, when he sees this shoplifter hiding in a photo booth, and the cops haul him away. He yells at him, "Get a lawyer!" And just, it was one of those things where he didn't anticipate it, but it just happened. And literally the next scene, he's frosting some cinnamon buns, and he faints. It was almost as if the Saul Goodman part of him just had his last breath and has just died, or a piece of him just left him that will never return. I don't know, but it's so much fun to talk about this. Season 4 sees him checking out of the hospital and knowing that, well, the Hoover shop vac guy is very good at his job. Rest in peace, Robert Forster. But Gene recognizes that, well, he doesn't have much time left. And my second favorite of these black and white scenes is in Season 5, when he gets recognized by just a random coming and goer, like, "Hey, you're Saul Goodman." And he's like, "No, I'm someone else. I get called that a lot." And he ends up doing the Better Call Saul thing, and he panics and he's like, "I need out of here," but then realizes, he's like, "Cancel that, I'll handle it myself." What's going to happen in the black and white scene in Season 6? I really don't know, but whatever happens, it's gonna be good. These black and white scenes are excellent little windows into what happens after the events of Breaking Bad. And Vince Gilligan does an excellent job of not showing too much and giving it all away. It just gives you a taste of wanting more, but knowing you have to wait an entire season to get more. I hate him for it, but I also love him for it at the same time. It's complicated. There we go. Now let's talk about the individual seasons, starting with Season 1. In Season 1, we see Saul Goodman before Saul Goodman, as he's Jimmy McGill. And like I said in the spoiler-free section, he's the lawyer when you can't afford one. He works in pro bono, and he's completely miserable at it. It pays peanuts, and he gets the defendants at, the bottom of the barrel. And when he's not doing his lawyer thing, he has to help out his brother, Charles McGill, played brilliantly by Michael McKean. Charles has this thing called electro-hypersensitivity, and one of the biggest things in my early love of the show was that's gotta be a fake. He's faking this. And in my research, I found that, yes, it's a very real disease. It's rare, but it does exist. But it's just vague enough to answer the question of, is this real, or is he just trying to keep Jimmy under his thumb, as we learn in Season 1? But we also meet Mike, who is basically a parking attendant at this courthouse, and he's just trying to be with his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter and just try and live some sort of peaceful existence. But in the episode 5-0, well, the past comes back, and the scene that made me love Jonathan Banks the most is at the end of 5-0, when he talks about how corrupt he was at his job as a Philadelphia police officer, and how he tried to convince his son not to take evidence of corruption to the head of the department, and he did, and he ended up getting killed for it. I'm honestly not doing the scene justice. It's one of the finest scenes in this entire show, and just proves that Jonathan Banks is one of the best kept secrets in the Breaking Bad universe. The first half of this season, though, is dedicated to Jimmy McGill just trying to be a legit lawyer, even though we later learn that he has some pretty scummy tactics that he does. But he always brushes them off with the rationale of, hey, the customer's happy, so I'll just keep doing it. Like in episode 3, he pulls off this highway sign stunt involving a person falling off of the top and him saving them. Very nice PR stunt right there. We later learn that in a past life, he and a friend of his, Marco, pretty much just ripped people off for a living. And after an incident where Jimmy was almost labeled a sexual predator because he took a dump through some guy's sunroof, he moved to Albuquerque to be next to his brother Charles. And Charles is a very powerful attorney in Albuquerque. He's a big deal around those parts. And he and his partner, Howard Hamlin, played by Patrick Fabian, brilliantly by the way, kind of co-conspire but also not at the same time to keep Jimmy as far away from HHM as possible. More on the Chuck stuff in a bit. But out of all the characters on this show, Howard Hamlin has got to be one of those characters that I have flip-flopped on the most. At some episodes I like him, some episodes I can't stand him. But it speaks to Patrick Fabian's talent that he is as good as he is. But in a general sense, the first half of this season is dedicated to this couple called the Kellermans, who steal money from the state treasury and are just the absolute worst criminals in history. Not in terms of intent, but in terms of just bumblingness. They're like Keystone criminal. And when they're finally made, it is one of the most satisfying things you will ever see. And you probably want to know about that Chuck stuff like I keep teasing. Well, to put it very simply, at a certain point in Season 1, Jimmy starts to delve into elder law. And, well, he has a lot of clients in this condominium association called Sandpiper Crossing. And he believes that there is a lot of, misconduct and malfeasance. And he tries to sue them. And at Chuck's insistence is we need to take this to HHM. We need to take this to HHM. And Jimmy's like, no, I got this. But despite all of that, he's like, okay, fine, let's take it to them. And, Howard offers to buy him out, and it's a lot less than what he would have got if they saw it all the way through. And in an excellent monologue, Jimmy just calls Howard a pig, F-word, and he just leaves. It's a very satisfying scene. And we later come to find out that Howard had no intention of buying Jimmy out, that it was Chuck's idea. And in one of the most painful scenes in this entire show, Chuck just basically says, Jimmy, you're not a real lawyer. You are a criminal, and I will not have you be a lawyer as long as I'm alive. Chuck looks down on Jimmy. That's about as far as as their relationship goes. Because Jimmy was the popular one, as we'll later learn. And I'll talk more about that in Season 3. But basically, Jimmy was the popular one, and Chuck pretty much achieved all of the stuff that he did in spite of Jimmy. And it's sad to see. It really is. Because even though Jimmy, by all counts, is a criminal, he does the stuff that he does for the right reasons in most cases. The season ends with Jimmy getting an offer from a smaller firm, but still a pretty good one, and he turns it down, wanting to be his own man. Season 1 is not the greatest season of Better Call Saul. In my ranking, I said it was the worst. However, it's still excellent. It introduces a ton of new characters, including Kim Wexler and Nacho Varga, and it plants the seeds for the themes that we would see throughout the entire show. Just in terms of quality, it is excellent. However, Seasons 2 onward would get even better. So let's move on to Season 2. Season 2 begins with Jimmy taking a bit of a vacation, and Kim talks him into taking the job at Davis & Maine. And the show does a great job of showing that Jimmy is not really cut out to be at a very upper-class firm. In one of the best scenes in the show, he gets his company car. It's a very nice-looking Mercedes. And he steps into it, and he has this cup that says World's Second Best Lawyer. And he tries to stick it in the cup holder, and it will not fit. So, I could pretty much explain it, but I'm sure you all are putting it all together in your heads. Also in Season 2, we see Mike take on more freelance work as a bodyguard for hire, including one such guy who is just hilariously out of his depth, who stole pills from the company that he works for. And as a result of this, Mike kind of pisses off the wrong people. More specifically, the Salamanca family, and we see those damned twins again. Like, seriously, they look exactly the same. It's like the Bella twins, but in reverse. And we actually see Hector Salamanca not in the wheelchair and as an able-bodied person. He's played by Mark Margolis, and he's just great. He really is. And this is the first real season where Kim becomes a focal point. Because when Jimmy airs a commercial for Davis & Maine, people get mad about it, and the blowback goes on Kim, and she is demoted to doc review because of it. And it's not fun. So, because of this, she calls everyone that she knows to help her out, until she finally stumbles on Mesa Verde, this little bank that wants to take things regional. And, well, she tries to help them out, but Howard Hamlin is like, alright, we'll take it from here, you can go back to doc review now. But by season's end, she takes it all for herself. It's great. Also, Mesa Verde would be carried over until the end of Season 5. And at the end of the season, we later learn that Chuck has pretty much plans in mind to get Jimmy debarred at all cost. And one of the biggest, oh god moments is when, at the end of the final episode called Click, they have this heartfelt conversation, and Jimmy admits to something that he did to get Chuck in hot water with HHM, and he leaves, and Chuck just takes off one of his space blankets and finds a tape recorder, and he hits click. And you're just like, what? And then you see created by Vince Gilligan. You're like, there's gotta be more than that! Again, this is a definite improvement from Season 1, but this show somehow gets even better, so it's only at the bottom rung. However, Season 2 is excellent. Season 3 is where the heat really starts to turn on. Basically, for 2/3 of the season, Chuck is hell-bent on getting Jimmy debarred. He uses the tape at the end of Season 2 to nail Jimmy for tampering with evidence charges and gets him arrested. Nice brotherly relationship there. My favorite episode of this season is simply called Chicanery, and it all revolves around this hearing, I suppose, where Jimmy's law license is on the line. And there's this one big scene where Jimmy is like, so Chuck, this electro-hypersensitivity, you can't have any electronics on you at all? And Chuck is like, that's right, you would know this. And Jimmy's like, well, Chuck, would you do me a favor and reach into your breast pocket? And Chuck reaches into his pocket, and he realizes it's Jimmy's cell phone battery, and he throws it away. And Jimmy's like, that cell phone battery has been on him for over an hour, and points to Huel Babineau, who is one of my favorite side characters in the show, played by the brilliant comedian Lavelle Crawford. And he says, this is Huel Babineau. He placed that on Mr. McGill over an hour and a half ago. And Lavelle Crawford's like, hour 43 minutes to be precise. And then Jimmy's like, an hour and 43 minutes, thank you. And Chuck is completely thrown off by this. This, combined with his ex-wife being in town and just a complete blind rage towards getting Jimmy debarred, just goes into this completely untamed rant about how Jimmy is this awful person. And in many ways he's right, but in front of this board he looks like a raving lunatic. He talks about the Chicago sunroof thing, he talks about taking money out of the cash drawer in Cicero, and punctuates that with, not our Jimmy, not our precious Jimmy. Michael McKean is an excellent actor. That's all I'm saying. And all the Chuck stuff ends when, well, Chuck dies. He pretty much kills himself in a house fire. And it's highly implied that Jimmy might have had something to do with it, but it's also implied that Howard might have as well. Basically what happens is that, well, Jimmy gets banned from practicing law for a year, and creates this idea of, I'll go in and try and cancel my malpractice. And he later learns that Chuck has malpractice too. And so he makes up this story about how Chuck is sick and that he might be dying soon. And the law clerk is like, I just wrote it down. I'm going to bring this. And Jimmy's like, don't do that. Please don't. But Jimmy is like, it's all part of the plan. And Howard basically forces Chuck out of HHM, and, well, Chuck kills himself. This is a very loaded season, so I don't know where else to go after that, but I guess after Jimmy gets banned for a year, well, Jimmy and Kim's practice together is pretty much down the tubes. Wexler and McGill is and the rest of the season revolves around Jimmy trying to sell his airtime for the ads that he booked for his own law practice, while Kim goes knees deep into Mesa Verde. And in one of the best editing parts of this entire season, and the show, quite frankly, is when Kim is basically strung out on both ends. Like she is completely tired, she hasn't eaten or slept in days, and while she's on her way to an appointment, she's just driving along, and the show smash cuts to a literal car crash. And she fell asleep for maybe 30 seconds. But that's all it really needs. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, Gus Fring, the big bad guy of Breaking Bad, comes back as a regular starting in Season 3. And it's Giancarlo Esposito, so of course he's going to be amazing. And Mike starts taking freelance work from him, while Nacho starts to get the idea of maybe my uncle is not the best person. And Nacho gets in bed with Gus Fring. Meanwhile, Nacho's father pretty much disowns him. This is a loaded season, you guys. That's why I said at the beginning, if I miss anything, I will talk about it at some point in the future. But at the end of the day, Season 3 is my second favorite season. It has the most plot points going forward, and it is definitely the meat in the Better Call Saul sandwich, because Season 1 and 2 were the first piece of bread, and Season 3 is the definite meat of the series. It establishes the themes that will carry on through 4 and 5. Speaking of 4, let's talk about Season 4. Season 4 is the first season without Chuck, and, well, Jimmy kind of starts out as a man without a rudder, so to speak. He's been banned from the law for a year and has to find other odd jobs to do, and, well, let's just say, this is where Jimmy McGill starts to die off a bit and Saul Goodman starts to pick up. My favorite part of this season is on the back end of Season 4, starting with the episode Cushada. By this point, Jimmy has been selling burner phones, and he comes across an undercover police officer, and, well, Lavelle Crawford's character, Huel, hits him over the head with a bag of sandwiches. No, I'm not making that up. He hits him with a bag of sandwiches. And, well, he gets arrested for it, because one must not forget the lethal power of roast beef. Anyway, Jimmy goes to just great lengths to try and get Huel off the hook, including making up a completely false GoFundMe campaign, as well as creating a profile for him in Coushatta, Louisiana, Huel's hometown. I am seriously not doing this justice. Coushatta may be, unironically, one of my favorite episodes of the show. It has not a ton to do with the main plot, but in terms of just showing Jimmy's slow descension into Saul Goodman, it doesn't do it any better. And it shows that Kim is more than willing to get her hands dirty for this. Elsewhere, we have Mike pretty much becoming a full-time employee for Gus Fring, and his first true test is accompanying these German architects who are building the meth lab that we eventually see in Breaking Bad. And, wow, the Werner Ziegler stuff is truly heartbreaking. It just... Basically, Werner Ziegler sees more than he's supposed to, and Mike has to kill him. And it's a decision that has repercussions on Mike all throughout Season 5. It's where the Mike Ehrmantraut, the good guy, dies, and the Mike that we see starting at the end of Season 2 of Breaking Bad begins. We also see the introduction of Lola Salamanca, played by Tony Dalton. And at first, I was like, okay, where is this character going? But by the end, he's now one of my favorites. He's just awesome. I believe it was Jeremy Johns in his review when he said that he's that guy at a barbecue who will, talk to everybody and he's the life of the party, but deep down, you know he is more than capable of carrying out a mob hit. Lola is basically the arm of Hector Salamanca because he's had his stroke by now and, is in a wheelchair. So Lola is the direct black hand, or just the hand of the Salamanca family. And he is a meddler, let's just say that. What made me decide that Season 3 was my second favorite season over 4 is that while 4 is excellent and it has plenty of great episodes, I think 3 is really more important in terms of just the grand scheme of things. 4 is excellent, but 3 is even better. But with that said, Season 4 is still really, really good. But now we get into the granddaddy of them all, Season 5. By the time Season 5 ends, it seems as if the roles are reversed. It's now no longer Saul Goodman being, the lawyer you love to hate. It might be Kim. Because all throughout the seasons, Kim Wexler was Miss Mesa Verde. She was trying to help them out as best she can. But then the whole Mr. Acker thing happens. Basically, Mesa Verde wants to create a call center, but there's this one house that's in the way, and he doesn't want to move. And she quickly realizes that, there's more to life than this, so she quickly disassociates herself from there, as well as Schweikert and Copley, who is a secondary firm who has been helping them out. And the Mesa Verde stuff ends with a bang. Pretty much, Saul shoots these phony commercials where people are like, Mesa Verde did me wrong on this, and there's not an ounce of truth to them. However, there's enough evidence to where Mesa Verde's expansion plans would just go and so much happens in this season. Jimmy and Kim get married due to a technicality they need to exploit. Mike becomes even more entrenched into the Fring Empire, to the point where it almost costs him his relationship with his granddaughter and his daughter-in-law. Lola gets in trouble with the DEA and has to be broken out, and the best 2 episodes of this season basically involve Jimmy becoming a bagman and trying to get the bail money for Lalo to get out of the DEA's custody, and, having to walk through the desert for what seems like days with Mike. If you just watch 2 episodes from Season 5, watch Bagman and Bad Choices Road, in that order. They're the best of the season. But it almost as if feels like Season 5 is just, everyone's going to a head-on collision. And I'm here for it. And that's where we are so far. I feel like I missed a lot, but this show is just stocked full of characters and side stories that I know that I couldn't cover them all, but I took a ton of notes, and I just hope that I gave a general sense of everything. What do I expect from Season 6? I honestly don't know, but I have enough trust in Vince Gilligan to know that whatever he does present, it's going to be good. And so what I want you all to do right now is to post your favorite Better Call Saul moments in the comments below. It doesn't matter if it's in 1, 5, 4, doesn't matter. Post your favorite moments in the comments. I'm really interested to hear what you all have to say. And like I said, I want to do a long-running series on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul in the future, so whatever I miss in this video will more than likely be covered in the future, like I said. Whew, that's a very long video. But guys, thank you so much as always for watching if you made it this far. Next Sunday I'll be talking about Only Yesterday. That'll be my first reaction to that, and so that'll be coming next Sunday. My speech is slowly becoming more and more just fragmented. But if you like this video, please sure leave a like. Comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and it's all good, man.